Hello, this is Jakey17Jake coming at you with my first video. In this video, I'll be discussing / reviewing the historic last episode of Game of Thrones, Home Season 6, Episode 2. So jumping right in, we get our first look at Bran after he's been on Dagobah trained to be a Master War Greenseer. We get a shot of Bran and the Three-Eyed Raven, Green Seeing, and then we move to a flashback of Winterfell. Now, although this scene was short, I believe it was extremely monumental for several reasons. First off, we see Ned and Benjen training as children, which was really nice for the nostalgia factor. Then we see a young Hodor, who I believe was specifically put in this scene for an important reason. But then we throw Lyanna in there. Now this I specifically see as important for several reasons. One, there was no real reason for her to be in the shot unless she's going to have a big part to play in this season, for the obvious R+L=J factor. Second, if you notice, she seemed to have a friendly relationship with Hodor, or Willis as he was called. They talk a little bit, and Hodor even says that he'll go down a little bit when Benjen strikes. So immediately we notice that Hodor can say more than just one word. And through the rumor mill, there have been rumors that Hodor is the way he is because at some point he offends Robert Baratheon, and Robert beats him to the point of forever scarring him. Now, I think this will specifically open up the door to Lyanna falling in love with Rhaegar, because if you think about it, if one of your friends was beaten to the point of being mentally scarred by the person you're supposed to marry, I think you would no longer want to be associated with that person. So it seems like maybe Cersei wasn't the only negative influence on Joffrey. From what I'm getting, it seems like Robert might have taught Joffrey that that level of ruthlessness would make loads of sense if someone is disrespecting you. So, moving on, the Three-Eyed Raven pulls Bran out and essentially explains that they can no longer remain in a dream too long or else there could be some sort of danger. I believe what he says is beneath the ocean is beautiful, but if you stay too long, you'll drown. Then we get to see Bran go talk to Meera, and she seems really bored. I mean, she seems dejected, just kind of hanging out there and really doesn't know what to do. She even mentions that she just sits around all day while Bran wargs and there's nothing left for her. But that really creepy, child of the forest tells Meera that Bran isn't going to be there forever and that once the war starts, she's really going to be needed. Next we move on to King's Landing, where a commoner is talking crap about Cersei's walk of shame. Man, he's just kind of going off and talking all these kind of horrible things. And it seems like the Mountain, or Robert Strong as he's been called, doesn't appreciate this and he just demolishes the guy's cranium. Then we get a shot of Cersei being denied the right to attend Myrcella's wake or funeral, and this is essentially because Tommen is just scared shitless of the faith. Like, he's worried that if Cersei goes, she'll just be arrested again, and he doesn't want to have that. After this, we move on to Jaime and Tommen at Myrcella's wake, and Tommen is just completely dejected there, man. You can tell he's broken. Like, he's worried about his wife, he's scared for his mother, and at this time, Jaime gives him some pretty good advice. He's like, your mother really loves you. Like, everything that she did there, she did for you. So that was really nice, and he just tells Tommen, go see your mom. And while Tommen leaves, the High Sparrow comes in, and there's this really tense confrontation. You can tell Jaime just wants to, put a knife through the guy's neck. But the High Sparrow tells Jaime that even though he really is no one, they could just topple an empire because everyone that he has with him in the faith, there's just so many of them, and they're kind of taking control. Now, personally, I do not think that this arc will run on too long, since we know Jaime is supposed to be in the Riverlands later on this season. So I say by episode 5, I think something will happen between the Faith and the Lannister Tyrell army, which will kind of end this arc a little bit. But then we get to see a glimpse of Tommen visiting his mom, and he just breaks down essentially, he apologizes, and he just professes that he's been a bitch since he ascended to the throne. Like, he's no Joffrey. Joffrey would have just gone in there and massacred the Faith if they touched his wife. Or his mom. Like, there's no way Joffrey would let that stand. But Cersei kind of just comforts him and just kind of lets him know that she'll help him be strong. But that's pretty much it for King's Landing, which didn't bother me because there's not really too much going on there, and I think it's going to be a short arc there, so I'm kind of glad that it wrapped up kind of quickly. because we don't want to waste any more time there than's needed, because, I mean, we'll just lose a lot out. Next, we move on to Meereen, where Tyrion receives he's just getting horrible news. Slaver's Bay was essentially taken over except for Meereen, and there's no real way to deal with the slavers. It's like it was falling apart already when Daenerys was there, but now that she's gone, it's not getting any better. So Tyrion's just kind of like trying to figure out what to do, and he kind of goes into the discussion with everyone there that dragons shouldn't be caged. He essentially says when Aegon conquered the Seven Kingdoms, his dragons were miles long, but when they started caging them up, they started getting smaller and smaller, and by the time the last dragon was alive, it was only the size of a cat. So he says dragons don't do good in captivity, that they really need to let them go and kind of give them some free reign. So his bright idea is to release the last two dragons. And a lot of people were giving Tyrion grief about this, but I think it was a really smart idea. When the dragons were free, people were afraid. Like, they knew that the dragons would mess them up. So this wouldn't be a bad idea, just to kind of try and get a little more fear going. Like, I don't think fear is a good way to run a country, but the way Meereen is, it's just a civil war right now. There's no way the slaves will be free unless there's a little more for the masters to be afraid of. So, yeah, I think essentially this war is just holding them back from going to Westeros. And I think it's just going to end up being a complete waste of time. By the time they're done, I think all of Meereen and Slaver's Bay is just going to be destroyed. But we'll see what happens there. So what Tyrion does is he goes down to the dungeon to release the dragons. And right away, there seems to be a little foreshadowing. I don't want to get into the whole Tyrion being a Targaryen, but it seems like there's some sort of bond there already. As we know, only one person can bond with a dragon. So even though Daenerys is the mother of dragons, there has to be other people that bond with the dragons, and we all know the whole there needs to be three heads to a dragon, so we'll see what happens there. I think Tyrion already has somewhat of a bond. And last season, if you notice, when Daenerys went down there, there was just the dragons were just blowing flames at her. Like, they weren't stopping. Like, they really were not having it with her. But when Tyrion went down there, they didn't really attack him. I don't know if that's because they could sense that he wasn't there to hurt them, but there seems to be a little something going on there. Now, I really like this part because he was scared shitless, yet he was still completely enamored by the dragons. Like, he's going up to them and talking to them, and you can tell he just kind of wants to, like, touch them. And I thought it was hilarious because he's like, when I was little, all I wanted for my name day was a dragon. I told my uncle, even if it was a little one like me, I just want a dragon. And that just cracked me up because you can tell that he really knows a lot about them, and he really wants to do something. He really wants them to be free. After that, he shackles the dragons or unshackles them and just busts ass and tells Varys, if I ever have an idea like that again, just punch me in the face. So that was it for Tyrion and Meereen. I'm kind of glad they didn't get into Daenerys because I kind of have a feeling that her story's just going to be her kind of trying to talk the Dothraki into helping her out, and just that little kind of, sometimes her scenes are a little boring, and until Drogon shows up, I don't think there's going to be much for us to do with Daenerys. But next we get to see Arya getting beat up a little bit, and then getting confronted by Jaqen, and this was pretty short, so there isn't much I can say about this, but she really just kind of professed that she is no one, but I don't think she's completely buying into the Faceless Men ideology because she only really wants to learn how to take her revenge on those that wronged her family, so I don't really know if there's much of her trying to be a faceless man for good. I think she just wants to be trained so she can go back to Westeros and make an impact. But after this, we go to the north, and we get a shot of Sansa talking to Brienne. And it's really nice to see because Sansa is changing. Because for the longest time, she was just a girl who made mistakes. Like, someone should have told her, just do the opposite of whatever your gut tells you to do. Because anything that she did, it was just wrong. Like, remember when she told Ned to confess so that he would be spared by Joffrey? When Ned was being taken up to Baylor Square, she just had the smuggest look on her face, like if she knew it all. Then the next thing you know, Joffrey's being a little ass and cuts Ned's head off. But anyways, now that little rant is over, we get to see Sansa like we never really saw before. You notice that Brienne is telling her about how she ran into Arya, and it's just really nice to see the growth in Sansa, that she was happy. Like, you could tell that she liked that, she knew that Arya was alive, that she was just happy that her family was safe. And it was growth, because I mean, if you remember back in the first season, she was really kind of, her and Arya didn't really get along, and then she just kind of like, it didn't really seem like she questioned much about what was going on with Arya after she just disappeared. But that was nice to know. But then we see a nice parting between Theon and Sansa, because Theon just doesn't want to be forgiven. He's just dejected. Like, it looks like he just wants to go back to the Iron Islands and die. He's ashamed of how he acted after he met his dad and betrayed Robb and killed some farmer kids, and you can just tell that there's a lot of remorse in his system. But even though I'd have liked to see Theon fight for the Starks again and kind of make it to Castle Black, we'll have to wait on that. I really think that he needs to regain more of his personality, and when he does, I think he'll actually make a difference, or maybe he'll just die. I really don't know. This season is going to be a big one for Theon, I believe. But speaking of Theon, we go to the Iron Islands and we get a shot of Yara telling Balon that he's just screwed up everything in the north. Like, he went over there when the war was going on, and he just essentially took over like peasants. He really didn't conquer anything. And Yara's just telling him that he messed up, that he was just doing a horrible job. And I really thought Balon was about to hit her, but he just kind of walked away. And he walked into the worst possible storm you can imagine. Like, there's just all this wind blowing. It looks like a stage 5 hurricane. But while he's trying to cross over from one of his buildings to another, he's confronted, and it's like the worst looking bridge I've ever seen since the Temple of Doom. But it turns out the person confronting him is his brother Euron. And Euron seems, for me, Euron is kind of an enigma. There seems to be some sort of wild card in him. He seems pretty sinister, and there's a plan that he has in his mind, but I don't know what it is. So, anyways, essentially he tells Balon that he's going to kill him, that Balon's time is up. He basically tells him that he's no longer the king, and Balon tries to defend himself and try and kill him first, but immediately he's thrown off the bridge to his death. Meanwhile, but Balon did manage to cut Euron in his cheek, but all Euron does is smile, like sadistically, like there's something different about this guy, and I really think he's going to be someone that I don't know what's going to happen. Like, if whoever allies with him, this guy's going to be kind of that wild card. But next we move to Balon's funeral, where Yara swears on the Salt Throne, but the Elder tells her that it's not her throne to swear on. So there will be an election. Essentially, maybe she will lead, but he says it pretty sarcastically, like maybe he'll be the first woman to lead the Iron Islands. Now, I'm pretty sure this is what Euron is after. He wants the Salt Throne, but to be honest, I don't know how this will play out. So we'll end up seeing, I mean, maybe Theon will get back in time, and it doesn't really seem like he needs an heir. Like, even though Yara's the heir, it doesn't seem like she will actually be chosen, so maybe Theon can rule without being able to produce an heir, so we'll see. And now, after this was the best 20 minutes of any Game of Thrones episode I've ever seen. Like, it really was. We see Ramsay, Roose, and a Bannerman just talking, and essentially Ramsay wants to kick down the doors of Castle Black and just kill Jon. I mean, like, a little late for that, isn't it? But the scene seems really important to me for multiple reasons, because Ramsay claims that that the 3 strongest houses in the North will support them if they do this. Meanwhile, Roose believes that the rest of the North will rise up against them. And Ramsay just really wants to kill all the remaining Starks so no one can really claim Winterfell besides the Boltons. And I mean, he's so paranoid of losing power, it is ridiculous. Ramsay's real plan is just the 3 houses siding with him. One of them is the Umber house, which I will get back to because I think this is going to have a huge impact on the future of this season. After this, the Maester walks in and tells Roose that Walda has had a boy, and immediately we see Ramsay's dejected look. Like, he's already kind of lost it a little bit. He snapped a bit. Well, when he goes to hug Roose and congratulate him, they share a few words, and I did not see this coming. Ramsay just stabs Roose and kind of like slits it so you can tell Roose is going to die. And immediately just tells the Maester to send ravens to all the allies saying Roose was poisoned. Now, this completely blew me out of the water because I didn't think Ramsay would ever go this far. Like, I never thought Roose was in any danger. At least not until Ramsay had secured every other opportunity and had leverage against Roose. Well, Ramsay tells the Maester to call Walta and the new baby to him so he can confront them, and he does in the courtyard. Walta seems a little worried immediately when she saw Ramsay, but she just sort of goes with it and whatever he tells her. And what ends up happening is Ramsay leads her to the kennels, and this next scene was completely messed up. But Ramsay takes her to the kennels, and she's just kind of freaking out. She's like, "Well, where's Lord Bolton? Where's Lord Bolton?" And sure enough, Ramsay's just like, "I'm Lord Bolton now." After that, Walt is just like, she knows she's done. She just begs and pleads with him. She says she'll go back to the Riverlands, and that the baby's his little brother, and the next it's just complete Ramsay. He's just like, "I prefer being an only child." And then as soon as he says that, he sicks the hounds on her with a whistle. Now, that was a really messed up scene, but I want to get back to my earlier statement that one of the houses loyal to Bolton's are the Umbers. If we go back to season 3 when Bran and Rickon parted ways, Bran sent Rickon to House Umber to be protected because he said they were loyal to his family. Now, this was before the Red Wedding, so there seems to be something going on there. If you look at the synopsis for the next episode, it says Ramsay gets a gift, and I'm almost 100% sure that this gift is Rickon. Now, I don't know if Rickon is the gift. I don't know if he will be killed immediately, if Ramsay will use him as a bargaining chip, but if he does kill Rickon, I think that'll be enough to set Sansa off, and it'll really get the ball moving because essentially, I think Rickon would be that snapping point for everyone because, I mean, he's just a kid. I mean, he's much younger than Bran, and he's really not that old, so. But Ramsay's kind of crazy, so I wouldn't be surprised if he kills Rickon. I really hope he doesn't, but I'm like 50-50 right now to see if he does. Well, now we get to the moment that, I mean, we were all waiting for. I know I was all summer long. I mean, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you've been wondering, you've been waiting. And I kind of skipped this a little bit earlier because I wanted to talk about Castle Black all at once. And so, I mean, here we go. We go to the first scene, and Alistair Thorne goes to Jon Snow's, I guess, room and tells Davos that his time's up. And when Davos just isn't kind of like giving up, Alistair orders the doors get busted down, and we just see them hammering at the door. And Alistair, of course, we get that scene where he's like, "I'm not a violent man, but forgive what you're about to see," and gets ready to fight. But as soon as the doors are almost down, we just hear just knocking on the gates to Castle Black, just knocking down the doors. And sure enough, 1-1 breaks through the gate, and Castle Black, and immediately everyone in Castle Black shits himself. One guy tries to fight Tormund, but is killed like with next to no effort. And then we have that one guy up who tries to shoot 1-1, and for a second everyone's quiet while they watch what 1-1 does, and sure enough he just grabs him and demolishes him against the wall. But after that, everyone just drops their weapons, which means Alistair really doesn't have that much support in Castle Black, because if it was Jon, I'm sure everyone would have fought for him. Next we see the little asshole Ollie. I mean, I really hate this kid because he gave Jon next to no leeway after Jon did so much for him and really tried to help him out. He just totally betrayed Jon, but Ollie tries to attack but is subdued super easily. And then all the traitors are sent to the dungeon, and well, then we get all like the rest of what's going on. And the next time we're at Castle Black, we see Davos going to see Melisandre. Now the whole scene was really intense and phenomenal because Davos, who had always been at odds with the Red Priestess, came to her and he really had faith in her. I mean, he asked her if she can revive Jon. And Melisandre's just completely depressed. She doubts she can bring him back, but Davos really doesn't let up, and he reminds her that she drank poison, that she had a shadow come and kill Renly, and she really says she doesn't know if she has the power to bring back Jon, but Davos counters if she's ever tried. So sure enough, the next shot of her, we see her cleaning Jon's body and just snipping hair off and kind of preparing him, which to me was really interesting because it's different than what Thoros of Myr did when he brought back Beric. So I'm not sure why she did this, but it seems like there's a difference, so we'll see what ends up happening here. But Melisandre starts a prayer in Valyrian, and we see so much desperation in her eyes. She just wants to believe again. And when nothing's happening, she just mutters, please, but still nothing. Then after that, the men in the room just fall out slowly, first with Tormund, and then Ed, and I mean, Melisandre just goes out herself. She just doesn't have any more faith, and Davos sticks around a few moments just hoping, but nothing. And then sure enough, I mean, I was almost 100% sure that we weren't going to get what we wanted here, but we get a few moments of silence, and then Ghost just starts to move, and next thing we know, Jon's laying still for a few seconds, just a still shot of Jon for a few seconds, and then a huge gasp, and then breathing heavily, and next thing we know, Jon Snow's alive. This was the moment everyone's been waiting for. I mean, I know I sure was. This was something else. Even though everyone expected it, I was still screaming. I mean, but it was just ridiculous. I was so happy. It was just so amazing. I mean, I know if you went on Twitter, everyone was just commenting. He's alive, and there was just so much. But I want to discuss a few things before we end, and before we jump to any conclusions. First of all, when people are revived by the Lord of Light, they usually come back different. Like Beric said, he knew he was engaged, but he didn't remember what she looked like. He just kind of had a mission, and he really didn't know what it was, but he was struggling to do it. So I know that Melisandre's ritual was different than Thorozimir, so I'm wondering if that counteracts it. But the actress who plays Melisandre said that she wouldn't be the one who revived him. I mean, of course this could be a half-truth, and she really meant that the Lord of Light would revive him. But for those who have read a little bit about Greenseeing, they know that there are instances when Greenseers can bring someone back to life. So I'm wondering if there's the off chance that Bran may be responsible, and it was just really incredible timing. Another theory that I've kind of thought of, and I know a lot of people have believed this too, is so Jon's consciousness and personality wouldn't really be kind of broken down. His consciousness might be in Ghost, and when the ritual healed his body, he allowed his consciousness to return, or it just returned naturally. I mean, that would just be maybe his little warging that we haven't really seen yet. But the only reason I think it may be a little bit more complicated than that is because Jon is essentially our hero. Having him come back as less than that is just kind of a weak line. I mean, we can maybe see Jon trying to repair himself, but I don't know if there's time for that right now. So I think there needs to be a little twist, but we will see next week. And speaking of next week, we know that we will finally get the Tower of Joy, so I'm really excited because we all finally know it's essentially going to be confirmed next week, the R plus L plus J theory, and it'd be really nice to know that this will be validated. I'm looking forward to this, and I really can't wait. So that's it for me. I hope you liked my first video. Comment, like, subscribe if you liked it. Thank you.